Welcome to Wellbeing with Manny in conversation with. What we hear and what we listen to throughout our day can shape how we feel. If we feed and nourish our soul with wholesome conversations from everyday people, filled with positive stories that people can relate to, we may feel less alone and even inspired. We're all working through our own stuff, and sometimes you need to hear people's failures, successes, and everyday struggles. Wellbeing with Manny in conversation with is talking to everyday people about how they have journeyed life so far, with hopefully some amazing take-homes and some top tips for you. Thanks for joining us each week for another amazing conversation. It really is all about talking. So think, reach out, talk to somebody. Who will you have a conversation with? Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Wellbeing with Manny in conversation with. So today is a very, very important day. So it won't go out today, but you'll remember it when the episode does drop. Today is It's Time to Talk Day, which is a really, really important day. And it's the most important day to have with us someone who is incredibly special and helps to open those conversations. So today we welcome to Wellbeing with Manny in conversation with Mary Burch, who is the lead councillor from the amazing Industry Mind, who do such incredible work. Welcome, Mary.
Thank you, Manny, and what an introduction. And to say, we had talked a wee bit earlier about imposter syndrome, and that build up got, oh, there it is.
And what I'll probably do before the episode is make that even longer. So you'll have to listen to it, just to sit into your power.
Oh, I can feel my face going red. Yeah. Honestly, right? Oh, but hey,
we'll come back to imposter syndrome, because I think it's such an important subject. And obviously in some of the email exchanges we had, we've laughed about what we've said, so we must come back to that. So I always start these conversations with asking, what does well-being mean to you?
Well-being, obviously, as a therapist, as a counsellor, well-being for me is everything about the person, not just mental health, but it's about about physical health, the connections with people, that just everything that makes us. And if we can keep that in balance for me, then that's what well-being is, and it's kind of hard to describe. It's mental health, it's physical health, it's just feeling good about yourself as well, whatever that means for you. And we talk about, if we go back even about imposter syndrome, that feeling good about you might be being confident, recognizing your value, and that's what works for you. For others, it might be that I look at my son at the moment, and for his well-being is about going to the gym and building up that six-pack again, and that's what's important to him. And obviously for others, that mental health. And they all affect our mental health, don't they?
Yeah. I really like that idea of it's so individual to the person where they currently are. And I love the idea of the scales. I know that's something that in the wellbeing world you talk about so often. Things have to be in balance, and once it tips one way, you feel a bit. But I love the idea that it's so individual. What can make me feel happier one day, or make me just feel a bit more like I'm in control or balanced, could be so different to someone else.
Yes, and it's changeable as well, isn't it? Totally. That some days what we need for ourselves is that bit of exercise and then I feel good, or we're on time to talk day, being able to just share what's sitting with you, and that's what's important for your well-being that day.
Do you think it's really sorry, Mary. Do you think it's really important actually for people to recognize when it's not necessarily a good day for them, or where they're feeling a little bit off balance, and actually not putting too much energy into that, because of this, you saying it does, your mental health, your well-being can go up and down. It feels quite normal that happens, but do we overthink those days when we feel on the wobble?
Some people do, absolutely. And you're right, we all have off days. There are days where we feel just annoyed with the world, or we feel sad. And I always say to clients, well, that's okay. But I think the concern is, perhaps someone who's struggled with depression in the past, and then they have a down day, and there's that, the fear, am I going back to that dark place? And part of, with therapy is that education and going, well, no, it is okay to, to feel sad, to waken up and go, what is going on with me today? But what we don't question when we're happy, do we? Yeah, we don't sit and go, oh, should I be happy? What's that about? But it's those negative emotions, or what we consider negative emotions. And all those emotions, the sadness, the fear, that feeling a bit angry, a bit frustrated, they're all telling us something. They're all telling us that something needs to change. And it's about listening to them. And you're probably onto my, one of my favorite subjects, which is about emotions. That, that if we ignore them, then they don't go anywhere, they sit in the body. And there's our well-being that's being affected. Again, I was talking to a client yesterday, and we were talking about emotions and what the emotions are telling us, to be able to listen to what's being said. And I always say, well, if you stopped and asked someone for directions, to the theatre you're going to, and they'll go, well, Manny, if you go straight up that road, if you take the first right and then the second left, you'll get there. You hear those instructions, and if you ignore it, you're never getting to the theatre. And yet we ignore quite often what our emotions are telling us. And I think that's where the wonderful industry minds comes in, and go, we can help you understand what those emotions are saying to you. So
that
you can look at your well-being.
So powerful. I love that. I love that idea of that if you never really recognize what's going on and deal with them, you never get to that place of where you need to go. That might not be ultimate happiness, but it might just be a stepping stone on feeling better than you are now. I love that.
Indeed, because nothing, if the emotions, if we ignore them, they just don't go anywhere. I remember an actor during lockdown, and we'd been chatting, and I always say this, I always quote him because I love it. And we were talking about emotions and not dealing with them at the time. And he said, Mary, it's as if they go to the basement and they lift weights. And I go, that's exactly it. They wait. And then on those low days that you talk about, Manny, and they go, now's the time. And there it is. Those emotions come from the basement. They've been to the gym all that time, and they're bigger and they're stronger. And sadly, quite often that's when people come to therapy. When they're at that lowest ebb. And time to talk day. This is maybe the opportunity to say to people, if you have around yourself, your own well-being, if anything just doesn't feel right, then that's the time to talk. Talk to a friend, talk to a colleague, talk to someone in the industry. There are wonderful organizations out there. Applause for thought. Just send them an email, pick up the phone, and that's the time. Taking that responsibility for your own well-being.
We often align it, don't we, to our physical health. I'm sure many of the listeners all have heard this before. I'm sure you will. Maybe you'll have said it before, that when we have a little tear in a cardigan or whatever, if we sew it up there and then we can deal with that little hole there. If we leave it, that hole will, like my shoulders, that hole will get bigger and bigger and bigger. And then it's a bigger job to fix it. It can be fixed, it can always be fixed, but it's
always be
job.
fixed. Yeah. And whereas, and what is the saying is that a stitch in time saves nine.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought the things that come back from school, my goodness. But that's exactly that. A stitch in time saves nine. It can always be fixed. And I think that's important to emphasize that hole in your sweat or whatever can always be fixed. But wouldn't it be great, instead of having to use 9 stitches, you only need to use one or two. And that gives you the tools as well to move forward and ensure that you don't get a hole in your sweater again.
Absolutely.
Or know how to fix it, or know what to do should it happen. And that's stitch in time.
Stitch in time, I love that. And actually speaking to people, even like you say, friends, family, I know I've been in a situation before where somebody who is not a therapist, not a counsellor, but somebody close to me may say just a couple of things that resonate, that just make me go, oh, actually, I could do that, and I could do that, and that just might make me feel this today. It doesn't always, obviously, reaching out to places such as Industry Minds, Applause for Thought, absolutely, always, recommend doing that. But sometimes if it's just a conversation with someone, you just never know how that's going to lift you.
And it's so important. And it is that, and I don't know about you, Manny, but quite often when people talk to us, they're sharing a problem, and in therapy, that they don't want you to solve it. They don't need you to fix it. That we are all different, going back, we've said, but we have the solution in ourselves, inside ourselves. And quite often when people share, they just want someone to listen. They just want someone to understand and see it through their eyes. And that is the important thing, whether that, and the pressures around, the industry at the moment, if we can just take that time, non-judgmental, not looking for a solution, but just be going, how are you today, Manny? And actually hearing how you are. And also not, our usual stock answer is, oh, I'm fine. And you push away whatever it is. Wouldn't it be wonderful? And again, isn't it, I always find it strange if I'm doing one of these chats or a seminar, and in that week, you go, oh, there are examples of exactly what we're talking about. And I was speaking to a new client yesterday, and they were saying exactly that. Whatever is going on with them, if someone goes, are you okay? Are you fine? And they feel that need to go, yeah, I'm fine. And when really there's, being able to say, but it's a fear of being judged at times. Which is, and if we could all just be a wee bit better, with our friends, our family, whatever, the people we're working with. And just saying, let's have a cup of coffee. How are you today, Manny? No judgment, not trying to fix, just listening.
I have a lovely friend who's going through something tricky at the moment, and I know that she didn't want to necessarily talk about it. It's something that she has to process. So I just kept sending her thinking of you type messages, and then yesterday she sent me a message that was unrelated to that issue. So I thought, oh, okay, so maybe she's feeling a bit more open. So I then sent her another message after saying, I'm just checking in, how are you? And I don't want a stock response from you. I'm okay, I'm fine. I'm asking, how are you? To which she did reply, with reference to that, which I thought sometimes, it isn't always our responsibility to kind of, push someone or drag it out of them. But when you know someone well, you can just go back to them and say, I'm asking you truly, are you okay?
And it's giving them that space to talk. It's that quite often, and I do hear it from clients who go, well, I don't want to say it because they might not be able to deal with it. do they really want to know? And if we can all be a bit better at saying, I do want to know. Yeah. And just checking in, and people will share in their own time. I love that, Manny. We're not forcing people to say, you know, what they're not ready to say.
Yes.
And that happens in therapy too, where clients will come along and they're not ready to share. It's about building that trust as well. And sometimes clients will come once and not come back. Every therapist finds this. And generally that's because that client's just not ready.
Yeah.
And I will say to them, I can recognize it as well.
Yeah.
I will say to them, look, when you're able to say this, and you say it in your own time, you go at your own pace, then please come back. Don't hold it. Yeah.
It's so interesting that as well. I had a situation yesterday with my daughter in a very similar vein. I know exactly when she wants to tell you something. And she came in the kitchen, I was cooking, she put her head on the kitchen side. I said, you okay? Just, yeah. I said, do you want to talk about anything? You can tell me. I don't want to tell you, you'll be mad. I said, I won't be mad. I said, I'm sure I won't be mad. There's nothing that you could do that will make me mad. But if you don't want to tell me, you don't have to tell me. And so she went, okay. And she went away. And I thought, she'll come back in a minute. And she did. She came back. I mean, what she had to tell me wasn't particularly bad at all. It was fine. She got told off for talking, and they get put on a particular wall. There's a little wall that says, you know, I haven't, you know, I did something today or whatever, and they have to apologize and they get taken over. That's fine, to the good wall, whatever it is. But she said, when she came back, I said to her, you know, that you can tell me anything, but you can tell me it when you're ready to tell me. It's fine. And I think when I think about what you've just said, it simplifies it so much with kids. They want to know that they're not going to be judged. They want to know that there's no fear there of telling you. And it's kind of the same with us. You know, we get to a point where we go, I don't know if I say this out loud, it's real and someone hears it. And it's kind of the same thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's exactly the same thing. And the bit I love about that is people want to take that burden away.
Yeah.
And the hints are in that when your daughter comes in, you know, she's not telling you what happened, but there's a little hint. I need to offload. I need to tell you this, but just checking how you'll receive it. And you know, it breaks my heart at times with clients who, and we build up that trust. And even then, if a client will sometimes say, you'll probably hate me after this, Mary, but I could try now, do you know? But the wonderful thing is they are going to tell me because they know I won't judge them.
Of course.
But yeah, but there is that little bit that I'm going to share something about me that other people may not, you know, may judge me for.
Yeah.
And it's a wonderful moment in therapy, if that doesn't sound strange.
Yeah.
But it is about that trust and that people can come and eventually, like your daughter, trust that she won't be in trouble, and how light. And again, it's things that, you know, clients will say, when we spoke last week, Mary, I just felt so much lighter. And it is that.
Yeah.
It is a burden we carry.
Yeah.
And saying it out loud is so powerful.
Yeah, it is. It really is. How you know, what would you say has been the patterns of people within our industry coming to speak to you? Obviously, everything's confidential, so I know that you will never give specifics, but do you see certain patterns in how the industry is making people feel at the moment? Why it seems that every performer I seem to speak to seems to be struggling in some way. Anxiety seems to be the kind of main word I hear. Is this a shift you've seen, some patterns?
Yes, and I noticed just even coming through COVID, etc., moving out of COVID, and there are always lots of patterns. I think I said earlier, isn't it strange when we talk and go, oh, that happened this week, and there seem to be these patterns. Often there is that low self-esteem that's being triggered, that sits with so many of us.
Yeah.
Yes. That can be triggered. Part of that is as well what we're talking about, that time to talk, that fear of being judged, that fear of even and around mental health, that people who are dealing with anxiety, depression, whatever, that if they say that out loud, there is such a fear as the industry is opening up again, that whatever's going on, that they feel unable to share it. Yeah. With a director or producer, their fellow cast members, whatever, being able to say, well, actually, today I feel really sad.
Yeah.
And so they put that mask on. And it's hard work.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's nice to have seen so many shows inviting Applause for Thought in to talk as they were reopening. That was a really lovely big step for the industry, I think, in looking after its creatives and company, you know, as a whole.
Yeah, it is. And Industry Minds has done something similar, done a similar thing, going in and encouraging that conversation. That just because, you know, someone might be struggling with depression, it doesn't, they've still done that job for the last 10 years. Do you know that we get on and we just do, but there's a terrible fear still there, that around the work, that they won't get the job. But and I'm sad to say I've heard of experiences where it has happened.
Yeah, that's not surprising, sadly.
Yeah, it's changing, Manny. But I think there's still more that could be done. And there are those few theatres, which is wonderful, casting directors, amazing, who are on board and they're proactive. Very often the clients who come to me, they're in, you know, they're working for a theatre company, whatever, you know, that isn't quite up to speed with mental health, and still very judgmental. And it is an Industry Minds, Pause for Thought, all of, you know, all of these other organisations out there are starting to change things. But we still have a long way to go. Yeah, we do. I don't know what the answer is, how we can encourage more people in. I really don't, but it's important for our well-being. It's important for everyone's well-being. And once you have that open dialogue, and I'll go back, jumping back, the Stage did an article recently around the pressures of creatives working front of house during COVID. And some theatres, you know, had in place, you know, procedures. And I spoke to some clients that work front of house and go, it's fine, Mary, it's great. And others were coming with, you know, go, I'm burnt out. I need to give this job up. I need the money, but I can't, my own well-being is suffering here, my mental health. And the difference was that the theatres who engaged with their staff, who almost, you know, that autonomy was there, who were supportive, who were able to say, Manny, if you have a problem that you're unable to deal with, then absolutely come and talk to me. That you're not isolated, you're not standing there, you know, having an argument with someone about mask wearing or the cost of a beer in a theatre, you know, that you know you will be supported by people, whatever that is. don't know if that makes sense, but
Yeah,
it
it
is about
does.
that conversation,
Yeah.
telling people they'll be supported regardless.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I wonder if I can just pick up on the low self-esteem that you mentioned. I see that as well in the students that I teach, and I wonder whether some of it, especially out in the industry, does come from that sense of not really being able to separate yourself from the fact that this is the job that you do. You put yourself forward for jobs and you might get 5, 6 rejections in a row, and that it feels so deeply personal, doesn't it? And I wonder whether some of it, I'm sure not all of it, there'll be so much more to it, but I wonder whether that is a huge part of it.
It is that with that rejection, and the word you used, it goes in as personal. And that is the bit. It's an industry where there's a whole lot in that, Manny, for sure, around low self-esteem. The first part you taught is that identity. And if you think creatives, they study so hard, it's so competitive that it's quite important, it feels important for them to succeed. Bottom line is it's a job. And I really don't mean to minimize it, but you know, you wouldn't, you know, if you're an accountant, a bus driver, whatever, you don't go, hi, I'm Manny and I'm a bus driver, you know. But quite often creators go, I'm Manny, I'm an actor, yeah, I'm a performer. Creators get tied up in the identity, which was one of the reasons during COVID where it was so difficult for creatives, where they go, well, if I'm not an actor, who am I? Yeah, but it is a whole new topic. Don't want to go down that, but there that does eat away at self-esteem. But then there is the rejection. And if we take it in as personal, if we make it about us, then that hurts. Rejection hurts. Rejection touches the part of the brain where we feel pain. So that's, yeah, that's the bit that's activated. So when we're rejected, whether that's, you know, a partner, whether that's, you know, you're not off a part in a show. I'm trying to think, even in life where you go, sorry, you can't get in to this, we're full. You know, there's a rejection, and it's how we deal with that, whether we take it in as a personal hurt, or whether, you know, if you were going to see a show, you were queuing to get in, or to buy tickets for something, we do it all online now, but you know, and they go, sorry, but even online you go, sorry, sold out. There's a rejection. You've been rejected, and you go, do you take that personally? Go, well, why me? Everyone else, you know, got a ticket. And we probably don't. We'll feel the hurt, we'll feel the rejection, the disappointment, but it floats away. Yeah. But with creatives, if that goes in as personal, that sits there and it eats away at self-esteem. And I think the big question is, I know I'm blethering on, but I think the big question is the reason why, you know, I look at my daughter as well, and she can come out of an audition and she go, yeah, I did well, and that's great, and moves on to the next one. And someone else who can come out of an audition and they're in tears, it really hurts, yeah, and then it feels, you know, that, you know, they go to those old beliefs about themselves. I'm not good enough, I'm worthless, no one likes me, yeah. And that's the reason, that's the bit as we start to, you sort of look at the layers, as to go, why does it sit with one person and another can feel that hurt, you stub your toe, the pain eases, and you go on. Well, with others, go, oh, that toe's still aching, my foot's still aching. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely it does. It really hits home. It will with so many people. I think for me, it's about finding what are those little things that we can do that just that, you know, so if we're aware that we have low self-esteem and that we're aware that we are one of those people that walks out of an audition and goes, well, that's it then, I've messed that up, and you can't really get it out of your head. How do you begin to rebuild that? Because obviously we are in control of how, you know, how we can make ourselves feel better, how we can build ourselves, celebrate ourselves. Where do we start with that?
Yeah.
It's a small question.
No, it's a big question, Manny.
Yeah.
All your questions,
Yeah.
but they're wonderful questions. They're important questions.
Yeah.
And the first part of that is to recognize what's happening in you, what that emotion is as well. Do you know, is that fear? Is that disappointment? Is that anger at yourself? Start to look at that and talk about it. Is to explore what is going on with you.
Yeah.
Generally, what it does, it touches, say, an old belief we have about ourselves, which kind of takes us round to the imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
You know, which is not good enough. You know, which is, I don't mean as a favorite, but a lot of us will go to that not good enough. Yeah. Which is part of imposter syndrome. Yes.
When I invited Mary onto this, I'll just share this for the whole world.
You do that, Manny. Yeah.
So when I emailed Mary to come and have a lovely chat, I said that, you know, she was one of the top people that I wanted to get to chat. And straight away, Mary replied with, oh wow, you know, like that really hits one of my kind of limiting beliefs. Oh, you know, and it's just, and then I kind of replied with, yeah, I know, but what am I doing? You know, sat here interviewing people, who am I? And just the pair of us, what are we like? But it's such a huge thing. I don't know if it'll ever, I feel like it'll never go for me, but it doesn't affect me like perhaps it used to. But now I do feel like, who am I? What am I doing? You know, isn't it funny?
Yeah, but that's the important thing. It maybe doesn't disappear, but it loses the power.
Yes.
It's less powerful. And quite often I'll say to clients that initially it can be, wow, this huge brick just hitting you, you know, and the pain of that. And as you work through it, you look at the reasons, etc. It's a little niggle. You go, oh, what was that? And you recognize what it is, and you're able to go, there it is.
Yeah.
There's that old belief. That's, you know, that limiting belief, self-limiting belief. And you go, you're still there, but it's a little shadow. And you go, I've looked at you, we've explored this, and we know we're good enough.
Yes.
Manny wouldn't have you on there if you weren't good enough, Mary. There's my little laugh to cover the real, to cover the little bit that's gone, but are you?
Yeah.
And the belief is there because, well, I'm here talking today. Yeah. And you're doing what you're doing. So it might sit there as a little shadow because these core beliefs that we have about ourselves, and again, one of my favorite kind of topics is childhood. You know, the experiences we have in childhood, quite often at drama college, you know, through training, that someone says something and there it is. You create a belief about you. That we don't even know we're doing, Manny.
Yeah.
And it's only when you start to talk, we're back to time to talk, that when you start to explore, you go, well, what is that? And you realize where it comes from. And more importantly, that it's just not true.
Yeah.
Because someone says something doesn't make it a fact. And always, all my favorites, a thought is just a thought. Yeah. It's not real. Yeah. You know, you can think that you're a failure. Yeah, you're not good enough. But that doesn't make it real. That doesn't make it a fact. And what we do is, if we even go back to those auditions where there might be a rejection, and that's what we concentrate on. That's what we filter in. look at how I messed up there.
Yeah.
What about the 90 to 100 other editions you've done where you were wonderful?
Yeah.
Yeah. But we ignore them, we push them aside, because that one experience feeds the belief we have sitting deep down.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we can change that, as you say, Manny.
Yeah, we can.
Through talking.
Yeah, through talking. Absolutely. Oh, Mary, honestly, we're going to have to do a part 2, I think, of this. We've probably got so much. I can't thank you enough for your time. I mean, I always close by asking for, the top tip, but I think it's been very clear that it's all about communicating and all about talking.
Yeah. And I think not just that we talk, but also that we listen. And I think just your example with your daughter is that not judgmental, not trying to solve something, just being able to listen and accept people for who they are. Yeah. And that's okay. Yeah. We are who we are, and that's fine.
Yeah. Oh, Mary, thank you so much. This is absolutely wonderful. Thank you.
No, thank you, Manny.
Thank you for being part of this Wellbeing with Manny community. It really means a lot to me that you can spare some of your precious time to listen to these conversations. Please share this episode with anyone you think would benefit from hearing these open and real conversations. And remember, talking is key. Who will you have a conversation with?